Hello, beautiful people. My name is Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today, I have my October reading wrap up, all the books that I read this past current month of October. So I noticed right after I took my thumbnail that the top book is really featured prominently, The Dragon Reborn. This is the book I'm currently reading. I was supposed to read it in November, and this is the first book I think all year that I have not gotten to a book that I said I was going to read. I think maybe there was one other one that pushed over, but I'm only 100 page. This is like a 700 page book. So it looks like I'm nothing, but it's about 100 pages in. But I'll just keep on pushing on, and I will now probably be reading that along with several others. But I love Wheel of Time series. I am really enjoying it. Definitely more than the TV series, which, you know, that's probably typical. So that book will follow me into November. But let me talk about what I read in October. I read The Declaration of the Rights of Magicians. I have a completely, let me put my coffee down. A completely separate review for this that I will link below to give more description, but basically this is historical magical account of the political battles for land and settlement during the earlier 1800s between England and France, and the slave trade going on over in the Caribbean. So you are following along with the political dialogue. There is plot and lots of twists and turns, but there is not a high use of magic or action adventure. So if you are looking for a lot of action, if you're looking for a lot of magic being used, this is not that. But it is a very intriguing story that just really intrigued me and got me thinking, and I just really enjoyed following along with the characters and trying to problem solve and figure out everything that was going on and who had the magic and who had the political power and how they were going to get around certain things. And I thought this was a 5-star book for me, but you know, I hope to encourage people to check it out, that would also be their jam. And I then, for my classics, I actually read a couple classics because I picked up my first James Joyce book. I started with The Dubliners based on some of your recommendations of where to start, and this didn't disappoint. I was nervous that it was going to be way over my head, and I think some of his writing may be, but this short little book is a beautiful little kind of essays. Each chapter is a different person, and we're just following people who live in Dublin. They're the Dubliners. You know, you have somebody who is on the streets, you have somebody who is just working class. Actually, most of the characters in here are more the working class, make the city run kind of people. There's not high society in here. This is just kind of a bottom base roots. This is what makes Dublin operate. And none of the stories ever seemed like they knew each other or connected into one another. It was just little snapshots and pieces of commentary on the Irish life. And I really enjoyed it. I did. And so I'm shored up to like take on Ulysses or something a little bit more challenging for him now. My other classic was, I did read every single short story in this collection by H.P. Lovecraft. This is all of his short stories that have to do with, I don't know exactly how to say this awesome word, Satula. Basically, so he writes the paper, The Necronomer, and it is about basically aliens, how they are amongst us as this creature that stirs up trouble and wants to kind of be left alone in some ways, but keeps, you know, is researching us and trying to do their assignment here on the planet. And it's very much like the Twilight Zone old school kind of episodes where things are just a little off and a little creepy, and it's like, you know, a lot of the stories start off like you wouldn't doubt why you know, so-and-so had gone mad if you had been there and seen what they had seen, kind of thing. And it's like all this kind of reveal kind of pace. I loved the writing. It reminded me very much of Jules Verne and Edgar Allan Poe and those kind of writers that I really, really appreciate. So I am down with that. I am down with creepy, suspenseful horror, a little, maybe even, it's funny even on one level. He is very into snakes and octopus and quite a few rat stories. So those are my kind of like, you know, antagonists. The really, really evil, out to, you know, do destructive torture and horrific acts for the sake of evil, that just is over the top for me. But this, if you're into the more kind of suspenseful, creepy, kind of slightly odd, right, horror, like, oh my gosh, nothing is the way it's supposed to be, then I can recommend that maybe you check it out. And I'm not sure about his other short stories. He may have some that are like that, but these are all about that kind of aliens or, you know, madness or things that are just a little off or unusual. And so I really, really actually liked it. It was perfect for Halloween, y'all. Then my nonfiction, I picked up Wendell Pierce's The Wind and the Reed. And so this is a line from the play by Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, which both of these were at the used bookstore. So I picked them both up. I had read this before in college, but I hadn't read it in probably 30 years, right? So I reread the play first, and I'm super glad I did, because it was just as good as I remember. This is basically a play of two kind of wanderers that are in a crossroads waiting for this mysterious person, Godot, and are they going to come? And it's just kind of a commentary on waiting in general and anticipation and trying to hold on to hope when maybe it's a struggle and you don't have all the answers, or there's some doubts as to whether something's going to come through for you, or this just resonates in so ways. So this is a true memoir of this gentleman who was a Black in a neighborhood that had been set up for segregation way back in the civil rights times. And so they said, okay, fine, we're going to do separate but equal. Here is your neighborhood, stay over there kind of situation. And so this lovely group of people, including his grandparents, had really established this as their place. They took advantage of it. They made it super nice, super homey, super community. It's a huge success story of just, you know, a community. And then Katrina comes and basically destroys that entire neighborhood. There are very few homes standing, none of which I think didn't have some damage. And so the neighborhood's trying to come back and rebuild. In the meantime, you know, there's other people that are like, hey, this land is really valuable. Maybe we can kick these people out. So it's like this whole big strife. I love the thoughtfulness and the commentary of just thinking about some of these issues, right? And how do we correct or bring healing at least to some of the wrongs that had been done in the past and turn it into something so positive and continue to do that? How can we continue to work towards that? And then he was a director actor, so he put on this play in the streets, right there in New Orleans for people to come and enjoy. And people came from miles and miles and miles away to see this play that just resonated with them during this time of disaster, during this time of rebuild, during this, because it was so slow. Y'all remember that? For those who are old enough to remember Katrina. So it was like everything was super a hot mess. And so getting help and getting everything there and getting the resources in and taking care of it was just that kind of waiting struggle. So this just really resonated. So I just thought this was fantastic. Just loved it. So happy that I found that and read that. Then I did go ahead and pick up This Is How You Lose the Time Wars. I had seen this book going around, and I am a geek about stories that have to do with time and multiverses and all this kind of stuff. So this is basically set on our planet, but in a time where there is the multiverse and there are different factions that are trying to change history to help them out. And so they're kind of warring, right? So I was thinking that this book was going to be really cool and brain twisty about, you know, how does this affect this and the butterfly effect and all that kind of stuff. But actually, it's not that book at all. It's a very little short book about two agents who are on opposite sides, and they are both working, trying to change history or correct history on their timelines or their strands of the universe, if you will, and they end up figuring out how to communicate with one another without their superiors knowing. And it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it's a romantic story of these people coming to realize that even though they're supposed to be enemies, really they are the same kind of kindred spirits, and how can they survive and exist in this universe that is at war and has all this stuff going on, which it was a good story. I didn't mind that once I kind of got over my disappointment that it wasn't gonna, you know, they would mention things that were happening, but they in no way would explain it or expect it to tie into anything else. So that overall, I was a little bit disappointed for my expectations, but it was a decent read. I still say it was worthy and a 3-star. And if you go into it thinking that this is a clever, very unusual kind of romantic story because it's written completely a scene and then their letter to each other, and a scene and then their letter to each other, which I think you might enjoy it more if you went into it knowing what it is. For my new release, I got Jacqueline in Paris by, who is this by? Ann Mah. So this was a historical fiction based off of what we know about Jacqueline Kennedy's time that she spent as a young adult going over and spending a year learning, schooling in Paris. And so we have some letters and some interviews, but she was a very private person. So this is where the fiction part comes in about her life there. And I just really thought that was really, really well done and a really good idea, because if I think about my life and kind of the formative experiences that I had in my life, so many of them were that coming of age, young adult kind of time of our life. And so I think that we probably don't spend, you know, if you're interested in the Kennedys and that part of history, this probably was really, really, you know, important part of her life. And so it was just fun. It was clever. It was a good ride. So, I mean, this was about 3.5, you know, coming up on a 4-star read for me. It was enjoyable. I liked it. I liked the writing. I will definitely, if this author came back up, I'd be like, oh, I liked her other book. I would look at any other works that she had written. Then another nonfiction, I guess I was in the mood to start my nonfiction. Another nonfiction I read in October was Texan Macabre. Who wrote this? Stephen L. Hardin. And this is a nonfiction account of a couple gentlemen in Texas history that, let me see if I can find the picture, that were basically at there's the Alamo, which is the famous showdown for Texas independence in Texas. And then close by, there's a town called Goliad, where there was another battle where all the officers were they lost, all the officers were captured, and then everybody was basically wiped out. There was no mercy. They were supposed to take prisoners or negotiate or whatever, but they just killed them all. So Texans were very outraged by that. And so the incident at the Alamo and the incident at Goliad, so remember the Alamo, remember Goliad. So one of the gentlemen who actually was at Goliad, and when they started like the mass shooting of them, there were 6 of them that escaped. I never knew this. There were 6 people that escaped that. They got in the bush, or they ran away, or they were injured, but they got clear and they got back. So a hero, basically, you know, somebody who's fighting. And then he gets in trouble gets into a fight and kills someone else. So then he's put on trial and hanged for his crimes. So it became this kind of controversial kind of thing in a way. It's like he's a hero on one hand, but then he's an outlaw on the other. And so this is just the story of that time period about Sam Houston, about Houston, which I really appreciate being back in my home city, looking at like, because the mosquitoes and the humidity and all that is rough here. I'm just going to say it is. But reading about it back here, I was like, oh, praise the Lord that I live here now and not then. That was brutal, but it was so much fun reading about it. So if you're interested in that kind of wild, wild west settlement, history of Texas kind of thing, this was a really good book. I have a librarian friend who lent that to me, so I can get it back to her now and tell her how much I enjoyed it. Then my spin that I did on my try chapter gave me the Last Time They Met, Anita Shreve. So this book is told in 3 parts from the perspective of a couple who is in love, but they just have the fates against them. So it goes with their more adult life, like 40s, 50s, then it goes back to like their 20s, and then it goes back to like their teens when they met. So each section goes backwards in time. The middle section I was not feeling at all. I was just kind of, do I really want to keep reading this kind of thing? I thought it had a solid start. I was interested. The middle kind of was like really a little off-putting. I didn't like some of the choices that were being made. I thought, well, this isn't going to go. You know, you can see why they were having some of the problems they had in what we already know as their future, right? And but then the 3rd section was really good. I'm glad I hung out there with it. Very, very interesting. Really good read. Give it 4 stars. Gonna read some more by this author. So that was my reading for the month of October. I think it was a great month. I had several books that I really, really enjoyed. Felt like it was diversified, but still gave me some of the Halloween kind of fallish vibes, got me in the mood for nonfiction. So if you've read any of these and want to leave me some comment and chat about it, if you now want to read any of these because they spark your interest, or let me know what you're gonna read for your nonfiction. I'm really looking forward to it. I've got way too many. You know, I'm definitely gonna probably be carrying over some books from November to December, but that's okay. That's okay. It's great to have so many books to look forward to. So I hope you're looking forward to some of your reads and you have an awesome day. Thank you for stopping by. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Take care, y'all.